if you want to become a psychologist to make a lot of money, this is definitely the field to get into. Like I said, this is a combination of psychologist with company or business. And so I think businesses actually really find that these types of people are really useful for their company. Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to be covering another field of psychology, and this is going to be a career that you can get into from graduate school. And so this career is called IO Psychologist, which stands for Industrial Organizational Psychologist or psychology. And this is basically like combining psychology or the field of a psychologist with the field of like a business or a company. And whenever you combine these two things, you get some very interesting combinations that I think really opens up psychology to a whole nother realm. And excuse me, and I find it very fascinating. So what are the goals of industrial organizational psychology? I'm just going to read a couple of these. I'm not going to read all of this, but I'll skim through it to kind of give you guys just a brief idea. Then we'll talk about salary, employment rise, and stuff like that. So what are the goals? Ensuring the physical and mental well-being of employees. Like I said, this is a combination of psychologist with company or business. And so I think businesses actually really find that these types of people are really useful for their company. Particularly for increasing performance, is what we'll talk about in a minute. As you can see here, increasing workplace productivity or productiveness or effectiveness, improving both individual and organization performance. It's kind of like the oil for the gears. I like this picture. Studying and understanding human behavior in the workplace. So there's a variety of like job titles you could probably have as an IO psychologist. But if you think that you want to work in this sort of environment, this could be really great for you. Particularly if you want to work with other people, help improve workplace, help improve the mental well-being of employees, improve the performance of both the company and people. So make sure, of course, you're probably going to want to pick a company that you actually want to improve, and not a company that you actually don't really like. So here I'm just going to go through 6 key subject areas. This helps you guys kind of understand, like what can you actually do. So it's not necessarily that each one of these sections is an entire job in and of itself, but they could be, right? So mostly for example, ergonomics, you're probably not going to get a job just about ergonomics. Ergonomics is like designing how well or how aesthetically pleasing or how well something feels, like a keyboard or a mouse. How well does a mouse fit your hand? And so you'd be like kind of designing stuff like that. Organizational development, improve organizations often through increasing profits, redesigning products, and improving organizational structure. And then there's performance management, training and development, work life. So these are all things. These are all probably different aspects if you had the sort of job that you would be kind of working in, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to go too much farther in this, but this field is relatively new and it's still growing. So here in the BLS, this is actually, guys, the highest paying job as a psychologist. So if you want to become a psychologist to make a lot of money, this is definitely the field to get into. I have considered this in the past, and I'm still considering it. I'm applying to graduate schools, and I'm still leaning toward clinical psychologist because I really think that it's going to be a better fit for me. And I don't think that I know that picking a job for money alone is not actually a good idea. It's going to be long-term very bad, especially if you pick something for the money and it ends up being a nightmare of a job. You're just going to end up swapping anyway, so might as well pick what you think you have a passion for at the beginning, right? But the pay, with that being said, the pay for this, the mean annual wage is really, really high. Like, this is surprising for even me. Now, you can get a doctorate or a master's and still get a job in this field, which is a very nice thing. And even if you have a master's, I mean, your pay will be lower if you get a master's, but at the end of the day, after 10, 15, 20 years, your pay will slowly increase, and eventually you're probably going to end up hitting that 100K mark as well. If you have a doctorate, you're just going to be doing that faster. So if you have a master's, you can expect to start off around 60-ish to 70, and then eventually you're going to work your way up. Whereas with clinical psychologist, it's roughly the same, except to be a clinical psychologist, you have to have a doctorate. So doctorate, you might actually be like 70K with clinical psychology. But anyway, 113K per year, and then the top 10% are going to be at 168K, which is just ridiculous. Why do you even need that much money? Bottom 10% at 63K, which is still, very good income. And so here you can see employment's actually pretty small. Let me see this. So you can actually, I really like the BLS, this website, because you can kind of see different parts of the United States and kind of like where are people employed. You can see people are not really employed that many states right now. This is a relatively small field. And it seems like if you want to be employed, you're gonna have to be in one of these 4 states. But that's just according to this website, of course. There's probably other job openings, other positions across the United States that just don't show up here. And this is also 2021. Like I said, this is a vastly, rapidly growing field. And businesses are going to soon realize, like, okay, you know, if we have these sort of people in our companies, people in California, of course, this makes sense. They're going to realize, like, if we have an IO psychologist in our company, our performance is going to go up, and it's going to be worth paying them this ridiculously high salary for, because we make so much more money out of it. And if you are a business owner, or you are, if you want to have a company, this is some sort of employee that you probably want to consider hiring, because, you know, psychologists, in my opinion, are very undervalued, underrated by most people in the United States and across the world, because still mental health is kind of there's definitely a stigma around it, but I would say that a lot of people kind of are still scared to seek a psychologist, and whenever your workplace has one, it's just like normal for people to kind of have that person to talk to, or to kind of have their life improved by that, or their work life at least. You know, that's very cool. So here you can also see the difference in average income by state. Obviously, California is going to be the highest because it costs like all of this amount and more to live there for a year. But yeah, guys, let's see if there's anything else I want to talk about here. Okay, guys, a couple more things that I wanted to quickly share with you before I end the video is we could see the different areas where an IO psychologist would be employed, as well as the corresponding salaries. So colleges, universities, or just a professional school, $70,000. So this is obviously a bit lower than that mean or median. We can see it goes up whenever we talk about management, scientific, and technical consulting services, $95K. This is much closer to that median. And now this is where the big money is, apparently. Scientific research and development services. They get paid $149,000, and there's probably a really good reason for that I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. But scientific research and development services, if that sounds like something that interests you, this is probably an extremely good field to get into. You know, I would guess that probably there's better performance for some reason, especially in these fields, and that's why the pay is so high, or something like that. And then state government, the lowest. So yeah, you know, this is just always good, no matter what field, no matter what major or what career you think you want to get into. It's always good to think, what kind of sector do I want to work in? Do I want to work in government? Do I want to work in college? Do I want to, you know, where do I want to work, basically? So this is something to consider for sure. Now we're going to be talking about master's or doctorate degree and kind of, you know, about that. So, you know, you can just Google IO psychologist degrees, and you'll be able to find a list of either a master's program, bachelor's program, or doctorate program. So the doctorate program is going to be a PhD. There's probably going to be no PsyDs, because PsyD is specifically clinical based, and IO might be helping people. It's not necessarily clinical in nature, because you can help people without being clinical, right? So Adler's University, this is just one example. There's a master's. I'm just going to scroll through these. Bachelor's. So I actually haven't really considered, like, you can get a bachelor's in this field, which is probably a very good idea. Master's and a doctorate. Master's. So really, the difference between a master's and a doctorate, again, a master's is going to be 2 years, and the tuition is probably going to be much less. Maybe not, actually, because a PhD is not as expensive as a PsyD. But a PhD is much longer. You also want to consider acceptance rate. These all seem to be pretty high. So bachelor's, doctorate. You can see there's much more masters. There's a doctorate, much more masters than doctorates. So you might, you know, if you want to apply to a doctorate, you have to be a little more selective, but that's completely okay. And again, there are some slight differences between the master's and the doctorate. You're going to be more specialized. You're going to have more experience. You're going to have more education in a doctorate, obviously. So you're going to be worth more. You're going to be more valuable. But again, if you don't have that time or money, or if you don't want to be in school that long, or whatever your reasoning might be, then a master's might be better for you. And even have a bachelor's. So you might be able to do something with a bachelor's alone without any other graduate school. So hopefully this video helped you guys. I think this is an extremely interesting field, and I believe I will be applying to a couple of areas or a couple of programs like this as well, just as more like backups. I still really see myself in clinical psychology. But thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.